Yo my nasties. Nasty Jack back at it again with some yeehaws and some ding-dang-a-ling-dangs on this mother-hacking chapter. Hope you are having an amazing day, summer, and life all the time. But yeah, you losers are the best, thank you my nasties. As we are starting to bring this sick nasty scary book to a close, I want to thank all of you for following along and stay tuned for my next book where I solve another mystery with big dummy thick detective brain. But in the meantime check out these sick beats. Here we go. Chapter 11 The Heroic Act. Mr. Mike and I looked at each other, then quickly grabbed a couple of chicken tennies left on the table and scooted out the door. Mr. Mike said to me, "We gotta get to the diner like ASAP, like 10 minutes ago, like right now." I said, "Yeah. But how are we gonna get there?" Mr. Mike said, "We can just take my icy whip, it is pretty old but cool nonetheless." We hopped in his dank car and sped over to the diner like a superhero and his sidekick. Upon arriving at the diner, night had fallen and it was a dark and spooky night with the full moon. Oh yeah, it was also Halloween. Also known as All Hallows Eve to us cool kids with them big girthy educations. But yeah, we ran inside and there were like 2 other dudes from the DK crew, but they were like, yeah, we were actually just leaving. We told them our plan to capture Pickle Rickle and were like, we need your help, but they were like, nah, you guys are solid, I'm pretty sure you can handle it, as they walked out the door. Okay, well, so much for those guys, I scoffed. I thought they were your friends, Mr. Mike. He was like, nah, they used to be cool, but no one really does anything here anymore because they are so lazy. Huh. I guess we gotta get this show on the road, I said. Mr. Mike showed me where they kept that good chalky milk and I grabbed a little bottle of it and ran to the front door. I told Mr. Mike to be ready with his own carton of milk in case something went awry. Gathering my courage, I stretched out my arm, then began to vigorously shake the chocolate milk into the night air. Pickle Rick loves chocolate milk, I murmured to myself. After shaking the milk in the air for what seemed like a very short 2 hours and 17 minutes, a ghastly figure drifted towards us, with my hat girl Sally in tow. She was gagged and bound so she couldn't move, but she was still squirming to get away cause she ain't no coward. My dude. So yeah, I slowly walked backwards, still shaking that yummy milk at our bad guy. Pickle Rickle seemed like he was in a trance as he slowly drifted towards the chocolate milk I had in my hand. I started to unscrew the cap and poured a little bit of that good juicy milk right on the floor there. Sorry Mr. Mike's janitor, but this is an emergency. Pickle Rickle seemed to only be cognizant of that delicioso milk on the ground right there. He put Sally down and bent over to lick up all that stuff I had poured on the ground. Right as I began to move towards him, his head snapped up and he snarled. "Nasty Jack," he said. "You are a worthy nemesis." He picked Sally back up and soared into the air with the sheer force of his magic power. "But today I will show you that your big brain by itself is no match for a years-old entity like myself. You have no chance against me." "Oh yeah? Well, it's not just my big long thick 10-inch brain that will stop you. It's the help of my friends." Right as I finished, Mr. Mike started splashing his chocolate milk all over the room. Pickle Rick screamed like this now, agonized by the sight of so much good milk being ruined. He dropped Sally back on the floor like this bonk and began to lap some of the milk up. I ran over to Sally and ripped the gag out of her mouth, but Pickle Rickle was ready. "I don't think so," he yelled, and yeeted me across the room, and I landed on the floor with a big thud. Mr. Mike was ready from behind and snatched the dagger out of Pickle Rick's pocket with a crafty yoink. As soon as I had taken the gag off of Sally, she had started to chant the spell that would bind Pickle Rick so that he was helpless. The spell obviously had started to take effect as Pickle Rick wailed and looked helplessly at all the chocolate milk on the ground. Mr. Mike tossed me the knife and I deftly grabbed it out of the air like a ninja or some other cool dude that is really good at catching stuff. Maybe like a baseball player or juggler. Lol, it would be pretty cool to be a juggler. Maybe in my next adventure I will learn how. But yeah, I took a swift lunge and punched the dagger forward with a thrust back by the weight of my entire body. As the dagger sunk into Pickle Rick's exposed midriff, he let out a nasty scream and flailed his long childish arms, knocking me across the room yet again. He started to dissipate, and in the throes of his fatal wound, he let out an intense wail and a big nutbuster fart, then threw the dagger straight at me. No, nasty Jack. Before I could react, Mr. Mike dived in front of me, right in the path of the soaring dagger. It pierced his chest, and he slumped to the ground. As Pickle Rick's body dispersed into the air, I slumped to the ground, my heart racing. Hello, my nasties back again. This episode we have a couple of new sponsors. I haven't heard from Stan in a minute, so I think he may have drowned, but I'm actually about as indifferent as a llama named Tina trying to get that good dinner after a long day of not doing anything like a real G. But yeah, away we go with our first sponsor, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is that good talented money boy with that good bank. If you ever wanted to keep all of your money in an imaginary cloud in their database, they're there for you. You can do all sorts of things like get a debit card or credit card and use them to buy cool things you need, like tickets to my bus tour or my audioboom. But yeah, they are pretty cool guys, I guess, and they will look after your money real good, so check them out if you haven't heard of them. Our other sponsor today is the man himself, Cap'n from the Animal Crossing series. Wow, I cannot believe he would endorse my show like that. OMG, I am such a big fan of his work. But yeah, if you are trying to make some money to put in that cool new Wells Fargo bank account, then take a trip to the island and get serenaded by the lovely tunes and sultry lyrics of our guy the Cap'n. But yeah, they got bugs galore on that island that sell for like lots of moolah, so give him a shout out and leave a hashtag so that they trend on Twitter like this #Cap'n. But yeah, that's all we got today. I think both of these guys are pretty cool, so check them out after we finish up the sweet good chapter. Now back to the show. Holding Mr. Mike in my arms, he let out a faint fart, and slowly opened his eyes. I looked at the knife in his chest and saw blood spurting out of him. It was pretty gross, and I'm not like super squeamish, but still, like a kid, was making me feel like I was gonna blow chunks out the wazoo. It's okay, said Mr. Mike, I can die peacefully knowing that Pickle Rick is finally departed from this world. My eyes began to water like when you get to the ending of a super cute Disney movie, but holy cow, it was so sad. I whispered to Mr. Mike, I love you. You were a really real dude for real. His trembling hands fumbled for the pocket on the chest of his overalls. I saved those cute photos you took at SeaWorld on this flash drive. He put the USB card in my hand. I especially liked the pictures of that one orca. I stayed up all night looking at him. Mr. Mike, I sighed. Don't worry about me, Nasty Jack, he said, and his voice trailed off. With his last breath he let out a weak yee-haw. A single manly tear rolled down my cheek as I lost another good friend that I had made along this wild trip. I will never forget you, Mr. Mike. I will make sure that you are remembered as a cool guy and big hero. My dude. I gently laid Mr. Mike's body on the ground and turned around and untied Sally's wrists since I forgot she was still sitting there, lol, and she stood up. I went to give Sally a big ol' slip-slapping high-five like I had never given before. The loss of Mr. Mike Washington had immediately given way to the pure euphoria of putting Pickle Rick's dirty soul to rest. Sally was laughing like this, ha we did it, Nasty Jack. We hugged quickly, but we both backed off like holy cow, hugging a girl is so embarrassing, am I right guys? Especially when you confessed your undying love for her, only for it to be unrequited. But yeah, we broke apart and looked forlornly over at Mr. Mike's corpse, and although we had beaten Pickle Rick, it still felt like something had been left unfinished. But before we could even process the loss of our friend, we heard an unsettling laugh grow from a low chuckle to a raucous roar. Then right in front of our eyes, we watched as Mr. Mike rose, and slowly transformed into a gross, twisted, boyish figure. It was Pickle Rick. This audiobook is copyrighted by Nasty Jack Cool Storytime Incorporated.